we're going over issues that arise when we are practicing our jumps. Just like our turns and everything else we've talked about, there are certain things that we need to really actively pay attention to when we go to jump. We can talk about the proper way to do everything all we want, but there are still certain things that are a challenge to overcome. One of these would be spotting. When you go to jump, I made mention previously that I ask my dancers to look up into a corner and really bring their gaze upwards because it allows our body to go up. The kicker is oftentimes we have a connection to the ground and we look down, which means that our jump now brings us down instead of giving us height. There are a few jumps where you need to be able to spot in advance on the floor because you're like turning midair at different types of angles. We're not talking about that right now. We want to make sure that your gaze is always going upwards rather than down. Another thing when we go to jump would be our hips. I made mention in alignment that we need to really focus on our upper body being pulled up and engaged just as much as we worry about where our legs are going. With that comes our hips though. And I find that dancers sometimes just drop their hips when they go to get into the air. So you can have a solid grand jeté happen and then all of a sudden your hips just kind of droop. Or you go to do a stag leap and you don't engage the hip all the way, so you leave your foot kind of and leg dangle in the back. You want to make sure that you are engaging your turnout if you are doing a turned out jump, and you want to make sure that you are engaging your parallel alignment if you are needing a parallel jump. Another issue would be adding extra hops. For some reason, we get afraid of jumping and we'll sometimes do a little extra run up into them and go, or we go to land and we chug along. You need to make sure that you have a solid press up and a solid land. That's where your demi-plie comes in. Even if you do a jump that has a temps levé prior to it, you still need to make sure that that is a solid temps levé up, and that's only one. You're not typically doing multiples of those. Same thing for that landing. You want to make sure that you catch yourself, and that all comes down to your alignment. With that landing, if you're likely to bounce and add extra hops, you're also likely to have a really hard landing. So everything we do in dance should be quiet. We should always be melting toe ball heel. There are few exceptions where you would want to be stomping the ground with something, but overall it should be as silenced as you can get it. If you have a hard landing and you slam the ground, you're not engaging your foot where it belongs, which means you're not melting. Odds are you aren't doing a really good demi-plie in there that can really do some damage over time to your joints. So you don't want to keep doing that. So you want to make sure that you make that correction as early on as possible. The good thing with most of those jumps is odds are if you're still working on that landing, you're probably a little bit lower in the air to begin with. So it's not as detrimental, so I don't want you to be afraid, but it's something that you should be actively correcting. My last big one for jumps would be throwing our back and chest. Now, again, the other day I made mention in our alignment video that we need to make sure that we are keeping our alignment. It is super important for our jumps. There is a time and place where you may need to use a cambre or do different things with your upper body while you are jumping. However, you should never be throwing your chest or arching your back in order to leave the ground. I see dancers basically heave and throw themselves. That is not advantageous. In fact, it's going to create a really hard landing for you, just like we talked about. And you're likely to feel that in your back over the next couple of days. That is not a good feeling that you want in your back. So make sure that, again, everything is upright and it's going where it belongs from an alignment perspective. Those are all the key items that I really see always need a lot of work. There are obviously a lot more details that go into jumps as you break down each individual jump that you are working on. But as always, I hope this helps, and if you ever have any questions, feel free to leave us a comment, and I will see you tomorrow as we talk about our petit and grand allegro.